The room went silent when the bride tried to stand. Silk whispered, bangles chimed, and then nothing. She didn't rise. The groom's smile froze, his family exchanged looks, and someone in the crowd laughed nervously. If you're still here at the end of this story, you'll understand why a single dad did something no one in that hall would ever forget, and why stories like this deserve a like and a subscribe so they can reach hearts that need them. Aisha had learned the sound of disappointment early in life. It was the scrape of a chair being pushed back when visitors decided not to stay. It was the careful cough before an apology. It was the way eyes slid past her wheelchair as if it were an inconvenience that might stain their future. She was paralyzed from the waist down after a bus accident at 16, a morning that began with borrowed lipstick and ended with metal and glass. Doctors spoke softly, relatives spoke loudly. Somewhere between those voices, Aisha decided she would not become invisible. She learned to stitch with fierce patience, to smile with a steadiness that hid the ache in her chest, to dream in ways that didn't require legs, education, dignity, a home where laughter lived. Her mother sold bangles in the market. Her father had passed when Aisha was a child. They lived in 2 rooms with a window that caught the sun just right at dusk. When the proposal came, it felt like mercy finally choosing them. The groom's family had seen her photos, been told about the accident, nodded politely. "We understand," they said. Understanding, Aisha would later learn, can be as fragile as glass. The wedding hall glittered with borrowed lights. Aisha wore a dress stitched by her own hands, pearls sewn carefully along the hem where her feet would not show. She had practiced transferring from chair to sofa, chair to bed, so many times that the motion lived in her muscles. But nerves can turn skill into tremble. When the moment came for her to stand beside her groom for the blessing, her hand slipped. The hall leaned closer. The groom's mother whispered something sharp. The groom's face hardened into a decision he pretended was sudden. "We were not told it was this difficult," he said, loud enough to be heard. "This marriage will be a burden." Aisha's mother reached for words and found none. The hall found its voice. Pity fell like dust. Someone suggested postponement. Someone else suggested returning the gifts. And then, in a voice that cut clean through the noise, the groom said what he had rehearsed in his fear. "I cannot marry her." The rejection did not arrive with drama. It arrived with paperwork, with men folding their hands and women gathering shawls, with the lights dimming early. Aisha sat very still, because if she moved, she would break. When the hall emptied, she counted her breaths and told herself the floor was solid, the chair was solid, she was solid. Dignity is sometimes just refusing to fall apart in public. Days passed like water over stone. The whispers reached the market. Poor girl. Who will take responsibility? Aisha stitched late into the night to keep her hands busy. Her mother pretended strength, then cried quietly into folded cloth. The world narrowed to survival again. It was on an ordinary afternoon, when hope had learned to keep its head down, that Imran came into the picture. He was a single father who ran a small stationery shop near the school. His wife had died giving birth to their son, Zain, a truth that sat behind his eyes like an old photograph. Imran's life had become a careful balancing act, shop receipts, homework, the weight of grief that never quite lifted. He was known as kind, reliable, unremarkable. People trust unremarkable men. Zain loved to draw. He loved bright colors and impossible machines. He rolled into Aisha's world because his crayon snapped in half and Imran needed thread to bind account books. The shopkeeper sent them to Aisha's stall because her stitches were legendary. Zain stared at the pearls on Aisha's work and asked questions without fear. "Do you make dresses for queens?" he asked. Aisha laughed, surprised by the sound of it. "For anyone brave enough," she said. They began to visit. Zain brought drawings, Aisha mended school uniforms and told him stories. Imran watched from the edge, careful not to intrude. He noticed the way Aisha spoke clear, funny, honest. He noticed how she listened. The chair faded into the background where it belonged. One evening, as the call to prayer floated over the market, Imran asked about the wedding hall rumors. Aisha told the truth, because lies had never served her. She did not cry. She did not ask for pity. She simply stated the facts, as if reciting a weather report. Imran felt something settle into place, a recognition of courage he knew well. What happened next was not romance the way movies sell it. It was patience. It was Imran fixing a loose wheel on Aisha's chair without being asked. It was Aisha teaching Zayn to write his name slowly, each letter a victory. It was shared tea, shared silence, shared jokes that arrived unexpectedly and stayed. When Imran's sister suggested marriage, because people always do, he surprised himself by not dismissing it. When he imagined a future, Aisha was already there, not as a charity case, not as a symbol, but as a partner. He knew the world would talk. He also knew the world talked anyway. The proposal was simple. No hall, no borrowed lights. Imran asked Aisha on the rooftop at dusk, the sun catching the same window she loved. "I cannot promise an easy life," he said. "I can promise respect, partnership, and a home where you will never be asked to stand to be worthy." Aisha did not answer immediately. She watched Zayn chasing pigeons across the neighboring roof, joy spilling out of him like confetti. She thought of her mother's tired hands, of her own steady heart. She said yes, not because she was grateful, but because she chose him. The backlash came swiftly. Why take on responsibility? Think of the child. People will laugh. Imran listened and nodded and continued packing school lunches. Aisha listened and stitched a new dress, pearls brighter than before. The wedding was held in their neighborhood, modest and warm. When the moment came to stand, Imran did something no one expected. He pulled a chair beside Aisha's, sat, and took her hand. "We will meet life where we are," he said, loud enough for the crowd. "Together." The imam smiled. The neighbors clapped. Somewhere, a few people learned a lesson they hadn't known they needed. Marriage did not fix everything. It rarely does. There were days when pain flared in Aisha's legs like a ghost, days when Imran's grief resurfaced unexpectedly, nights when money felt tight and mornings when Zayn tested every boundary known to man. But there was also laughter that filled the rooms, teamwork that turned problems into plans, love that grew because it was chosen daily. Aisha started teaching tailoring to girls who had been told no too many times. Imran expanded the shop to include school supplies for children who paid in smiles and promises. Zayn grew taller in kinder, defending classmates who were different because difference felt like home. Years later, at a community event, the groom who had rejected Aisha passed by. He looked older, smaller somehow. He saw Aisha speaking confidently into a microphone, saw Imran beside her, saw Zayn holding a sign that read "Belonging is brave." He did not approach. Some lessons arrive late and leave quietly. If you're still watching, still reading, this is where the story circles back to that silent hall. Worthiness was never about standing. Love was never about perfection. Sometimes the unthinkable is simply choosing compassion over fear, dignity over gossip, partnership over pity. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that courage can look like a chair pulled close instead of a command to rise, then like the video and subscribe to the channel. These stories travel farther when you carry them. And somewhere, someone who has been told no is waiting to hear a yes that sounds like home.